it's Roger, thanks for dropping by. Kitchen time, for no other reason than I want the pot. These are two of the orchids that are in the giveaway, and I can't replace these Holey clay pots any sense. They were very difficult to get hold of and I don't want to lose them basically, so these are getting repotted for no other reason than that. They're not getting repotted because they need it, they're just getting repotted because I want the pot. Simple as that. Come out. Now, is that the only one? Looks like it. Obviously I put a wire in on the rhizome to hold it in place. Get that out of the way, otherwise it's not going to let go of the pot, is it? I think that was the only one. Yes. I don't know how easy these are going to come out. Maybe a little bit of root damage, but hopefully not too much. Just as an aside, if ever you've got an orchid in a clay pot and you don't want to disturb the plant any more than you absolutely have to, you can always tease out as much of the media as you can. You won't get it all, but you can get a hell of a lot of it. And then once that's done, you can feed some new stuff back in without detaching the roots that have decided to grab hold of the pot. Now, some of these roots have grabbed hold, but they're not too bad. But what I don't want to do is damage the new ones that are coming out underneath the two latest growths at the moment. They're the important ones to keep hold of. That's not too bad. That's how you know what damage you've done, is what's left behind. And given the number of roots, that's not bad at all. And now most of what's left should just fall out. It's always strange how roots head for the outside of a pot instead of just going down through the middle. That's not bad at all. Roots are dry at the moment. This pot was due to be watered, but I wanted to get it out of the pot first and see what I was dealing with. So that's not too bad. There's a few papery roots in there, but not much. But what I was after is this. At the base of there is a nice new growth just starting, and we've got some active root tips, and yeah, it's not too bad. And this one, the new growth, is also just starting, and this one is already starting to produce some roots. So this isn't a bad time to repot. Not bad at all. So give that doesn't need much of a clean up. It hasn't been in that pot too long. And then we'll get that in a plastic pot and get it nice and upright. And obviously I can now see that I've got a new growth here and here. So obviously I can pot that in such a way that it'll have plenty of room to grow. I've got a big decision to make here. Do I take that back bulb off? It would pot an awful lot easier without that on the back end of it. But then that is a good strong bulb with 3 leaves, so there is some support in there. Decision not made. Right, now this is not going to come off the pot so easily. I just know it isn't. The chances are it's going to have to come out with its wire rather than try and get the wire out first. You can just see by the way it was put in, it's right in below where I can get at. I don't know, I might be able to pull it through. No. I think I'll just try and cut it just on the inside of the pot if I can see where it is, and then bring the wire out with the plant. I'll cut that as close to the pot as I can. And that should, if I cut that one there, then that should just lift out through the hole. Oh, my theory what I have. Right, how much of a grip have you got then? Cattleya roots do tend to hang on. I mean, I've got some coming out over the top and going back in a hole. Well, they're not going to make it. But they should be, oh no. We'll see. Some roots are not going to make it. You have to accept that if you use clay pots. It's just the way it is. But if they're hanging on to the pot, apart from that one, I'll take it off now. Cool. I've never known a root so strong I can't break it before. It's a tough little root. Right, that should come out now. I've been taking great care of the new growth, obviously. That's the most precious part of the plant at the moment. And its associated little set of new roots that it's just starting. That's not bad. I mean, there's one root hanging on there. And another one there. I doubt if that will peel off. No, left its tip behind. That's not bad. I've had worse than that in a plastic pot. I'm quite pleased that that came out quite well. There's some older roots on here from when it was last repotted that were left on, hoping they might branch. Some did, some didn't, and some can come off now while I've got the chance. No point in leaving things like that. Yeah. So we'll have a little tidy up. And we'll get that in some fresh media at the point where it's obviously starting to grow some new roots. And a lot of the roots this time are good roots going in the pot, and they may well branch. That's not bad. Not bad. It's not a bad root system actually. Taken Cattleyas out of pots before and ended up with just like one or two roots and all the rest are rubbish. So that's not a bad root system at all. But we'll give it a break and get it in some new media, and then whatever it goes in now, it can stay in for some considerable time. Do you know, it's possible that might push a second lead out there, you know. Although it doesn't look too happy at the moment. Again, you have to make a decision. You see, this plant's a little untidy because it was hanging over sideways, but by gathering the plant together like that, loosely, it's then more upright. And then this can be encouraged to grow upright too. So as it starts to push out, a little gentle tie, little loop, not tie it, just a little loop to stop it going out sideways, just to gently tease it upwards, and then you end up with an upright plant, which is a lot easier to look after. Right, I will have to take some roots off of this one, but not that many. Quite pleased. If I had my scissors I'd do it now, but I haven't. Okay, so I'll give them a clean up and then find myself some pots, get some media, and we'll get them tucked away, ready for transport. But half the media will fall out in transport. I'll be back. Okay, first one's the Cattleya. I did take some older roots off of the very oldest part of the rhizome, but strangely enough, the way this plant is, the oldest part of the rhizome is in the middle, because it actually pushed out in two directions. So there's actually active roots on this section here, with the possibility of a new growth. And then there is the new growth up this end, which is the fragile bit, and some new roots coming out underneath. So that's going in a pot roughly in the middle, but not exactly in the middle. Let's just try and tease these roots in. I did actually have a look, and quite a few of the older roots have branched since it was put in the Holey clay pot. So it does branch, as most Cattleyas do, and some of those older roots that could have possibly been removed that weren't, but actually grown. So trying to get that quite central, because that's the growth that's going to grow, but if this one goes as well, it needs a bit of room. So I'm trying to get it quite central, somewhere like that. Because it's a Cattleya, and I've got a few air gaps, it doesn't matter. Quite happily grow on a mount when they're not even in any media. All they need is that wet-dry cycle and the ability to dry reasonably quickly. Yeah, so a few air gaps don't matter. They help the process, to be quite honest. But but obviously the plant is more stable the less air gaps you've got. So, you know, it's like a catch-22. If you leave some, it's not the end of the world, but if you don't, you're more likely to get a stable plant because there's less wobble room. I don't want to compress these roots, although they're quite sturdy. They can still snap. See, I've got quite a gap down there, so I'll try and tease a bit into there. There's an active root tip down there which I don't want to break, so that's good enough, plenty good enough. As long as they're touching, that's all they really need. There's another nice new root tip there as well that I don't want to break. How steady are we now? Still seems quite high in the pot. A lot of people would think, isn't that a bit high in the pot? Well, yes and no. I can tease a few bits of bark in underneath the base of the plant, but it wouldn't hurt anyway. Any new roots that come out will soon get down in the media, and Cattleya roots grow at quite a pace, so it's not like they're going to be aerial for long. They will soon head down in there. Right, where's my new growth? New growth there. That's a much better balanced plant than it was in the Holey clay pot. It's far more upright and quite stable. Well, it is at the moment anyway. It's going to go in a box soon and that might wobble it about a bit. Yeah, that is a bit wobbly. I think I will try and secure that a bit better. I don't want to secure it by forcing bark down and breaking roots, so it's probably going to have a stake. Temporarily, I only need to stake one, but initially I'm just going to see what it does. So the fact that these don't need watering that often, I don't need to handle it that much between now and when it goes in the box. That'll do for that one. Okay. Plenty of room for the new growth, and if a new growth does come out here, it's still got room to move. So we'll leave that at that. That's that one done then. I've got to go and get a pot for the other one. Okay, now this one's obviously got a much finer root system, very, very capable of branching. That's good. It means damage will work its way behind the damage point and branch out. So it's less important to look after these, but most of these are good roots. I'm not going to bother trying to get in amongst them and take like one or two older roots off. More likely to take out 3 good ones. I'm going to leave the back bulb on for support. Yeah, it could come off, but it's not doing any harm, and the fact that it has leaves on it, it obviously is going to support the plant. Now this one, because it's got a finer root system, is going in medium bark rather than large bark, even though in the Holey clay pot it was in large bark. There's a reason for that. Just thinking back, this was once on a mount and it objected. It didn't like it. Its roots just would not grow very well, and I think from memory it was a consequence of having too much moss around them and staying too wet too long, especially in the winter months. So the root system started to fail. That moss wasn't ridiculously old. It's not like it was, you know, decaying and taking roots out. It wasn't that. It was, they just seemed to object to being wet for too long. So this does seem to need to dry out in between waterings, but it still needs some hydration. So it's a balancing act. And the medium bark for that size root is that balancing act. It will allow the dry. It's got crocking in the bottom of the pot, so you know, plenty of air in around the bottom to come up through to help with the drying process. That are good. So I'm doing very steady here because this is the area not only where the new growth is, but where some of the new roots are. plenty of older roots if I do happen to lose a new one, but if I can avoid it, all well and good. And obviously my 2 new growths, which don't want to be buried. But what I like to do is get my media down in where I can see it has got down to the bottom of the root base, and then gently lift the plant if it needs to come up a bit, rather than try and hold it up in the air all the time. So yeah, I've got some good new roots pushing out in places here. New growth sat right near the top, that's good. And this one still needs a bit down in there. The oldest pseudo bulb is a little bit buried, but I don't worry too much when it's just going in bark, because it's going to dry in between waterings. Well, if I choose to let it dry, it can dry, which means the bulb won't stay soggy. It will have chance, and obviously it's got air around it too, so. So I'm having trouble getting the bark down this bit because the oldest part of the rhizome's just there and it's like a woody stump. A trickle round there because that's where those little new roots are just coming out now, so I don't want to press in that area at all, but I would like that side just a little bit higher. How are we doing now? That's not bad. Got my new growth here on this one, so that's got that space to move into. And this one's coming out here, which has got space to move into. So that'll do, I think. There's a couple of little air gaps, but there's also some of the root system. Hello, fluffy cat. Some of the root system is nice and visible, so it's always nice to watch the new roots starting to push out, especially when a plant's been recently repotted. So I just saw a bit too big a gap down there. Right, how are we doing now then? Right, got a new growth sat near the top. Yep, new growth sat near the top. All right, fluffy. I want some food. So there we go. That'll do for that one. So that's those 2 done. We can have a good soak now. Settle them in and wash the dust out, all that sort of stuff. We've got warm temperatures out there at the moment, so they'll dry off reasonably soon. And yeah, ready to go. I know that label only says Cattleya hybrid, but it does give a description of the bloom on it as well, so tuck that in the back there. And then that one is Cyclia prismatocarpa. Put that round the back of the plant, away from the new growths. Right, that's those 2 done. Ready for somebody else to look after. Nice fresh media. Active root systems should be good. See you next time.